Hi guys, good morning. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my new video clip. I'm in my little office room here, the new Tropical Research studio, and today I want to make a jumpsuit. And this is the new TR Lazy jumpsuit. It's really cool, it's unisex, very simple, it's very boxy and straight lines, super hackable, lots of things you can do with it. Comes in a very neutral fit and then you can make it yours. Modify it, transform it, do whatever you want. The only garment you ever need. Thank you guys. And last night I prepared all the pieces and I started preparing, for example, the pockets here, but also the button plackets. And now I want to stitch it, and it's all just about edge stitching. So it's very simple. I just need to follow the edges here, and also all the top edges of the pocket. So let's do that now, and then I'll meet you here again. So here we are at the machine, 4 pockets to go. And what we want to do is actually just finish the top edge there with an edge stitch from the wrong side. Don't forget to reverse both at the beginning and at the end of your seam. Nice. So, and then there's also the button placket. The button placket is really simple. It's a double fold. So first goes the seam allowance and then goes the facing. Like this. It's all marked on the pattern. It's a good idea to trace these lines very well, and also buttonholes and button positions. Once it's all pinned in place, it's also just a simple edge stitch from the wrong side. So let's do these plackets. So slow and steady, and in this video version I'm doing it a little bit different from the illustrated tutorial. I am not leaving the last 1.5 cm down there at the crotch unstitched. I'm actually stitching it all the way through, and it's a little bit easier but a little bit messier than the version from the book. Now let's grab our 2 front panels and place the smaller patch pockets in their positions. I'm using a couple of pins there, and then I want to edge stitch them in place. So we don't want to stitch the pockets down any old way. We want to add a little safety triangle there to the top. So first we want to start at the stitches from the top hem of our pocket and stitch a little bit diagonally towards the top edge there, around 2 or 3 stitches from the side edge away, and then kind of back to the edge and then all the way around. And we want to do another triangle once we reach the opposite side kind of our top edge there. Well, watch me do it. Here it comes from this way. It's actually much easier. So stitch all the way to the corner, 1, 2, 3 stitches, and then diagonally back to the stitches of the top hem of the pocket. So I'm going to quickly do the other one and then we can continue. So chest pockets are done. I want to do the same to the back pockets. They're also patch pockets, so let's patch them into place. So this is the same, they're just a little bit bigger, and obviously on the butt. And they're already done, so let's do our center back seam. And yeah, that was the side seam, Toby. The center back is the one with the curve. So we're going to do it French. wrong sides facing first, pin it together, stitch it with 0.6 cm, a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now, I like to finger press. I'm using a very light linen, so finger pressing is my favorite way to do it. I don't have to move from the machine, can just do it there. Press it open, and then we want to now bring the right sides together, make that edge really crisp and clean, and sew the whole thing again with 1 cm, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now press it again, and if you want, you can now edge stitch, top stitch along the seam. It's a French seam, so you have to stay very close to the actual seam, and it's good to reinforce it all. So center back is done. Let's continue. Now that the back is pretty much done, it's time for the front. And the front is a little bit more work, mainly because it involves buttonholes. So I have to get the Bernina out of the wardrobe here, where she's hidden. Very messy. So guys, so the left side is gonna get the buttonholes in my case. I think this is the male version. I have no idea actually, I never really know. And I have these gorgeous mother of pearl seashell buttons that I use for basically everything. I also have this very cool ruler that has buttonhole templates, and it shows you where to place the buttonholes exactly. And I'm using 1.5 cm. The buttons are 1 or 1.2 cm in diameter, I'm not very sure. And I don't have a full automatic program, so I'm using the Bernina semi-automatic, which involves pushing this button all the time. So we start with the left side, then it goes back on the right side, then you do the kind of top finish there, and it goes back down the right side, and then you do the bottom finish. I always have to practice it actually kind of once, and then I feel brave enough to hopefully not mess up my garment. Anyway, it does work, and you can actually also get a special presser foot for that, but it's really expensive. So a couple more to go. So the buttonholes are done. Now we can take care of the center front crotch seam there. It's a very short seam, and this is where I deviate from the illustrated tutorial. I'm going to do a French seam. So wrong sides facing, pin the curve together until the notch there, and then we're gonna stitch it with 0.6 cm seam allowance, which is a 1/4 of an inch. So we stitched it to the notch. Let's finger press it open. Right sides on right sides. So, sew it again. This time we're gonna sew it with 1 cm seam allowance, which is 3/8 of an inch. So what we want to do now is give it a little snip there, so we are able to kind of move the placket the way we need it to be, like shift it over each other. And this is where it's really a lot simpler than the illustrated tutorial, but a little bit nastier. Fold the little corner in so you get this pretty triangular shape. On the back we want to do exactly the same. If you can't fold it, then kind of snip it a little bit. I want to put a few pins to keep the whole little situation there under control, and then we can stitch it. And actually I want to stitch it now like a top stitch all the way from the middle of the crotch there along the seam. It's kind of the same as the center back. This is also to reinforce the curved seam there. So once we reach our placket, leave the needle in, pivot, and stitch the little triangle diagonal side there. You can also add a little box, a little house, whatever kind of like decorative top stitch you want there. And it's not just decorative, actually it's always good to do that to keep the whole situation nice and tight and together. But this is basically the bare minimum. But wait for it, I will add a few more, but I haven't filmed it. Also another row there for a bit of a casual look. And then hop. So there's the little box with the cross and a little roof, and on the back a little bit more messy. All bunched up here. This is where we had to cut it, so there's a little bit of fray left, but that's okay. I've added this little fun box just for a bit of a outdoorsy feel. So guys, now I believe it's time for side seam pockets. So we have 4 of those pockets, and let's go for full French finish. So wrong sides on wrong sides. I'll just kind of flip it under, and there are notches to guide you. Please stick to the notches. And then first things first, a very thin seam. So in this case now we want to stitch with less seam allowance than we have. In the end I want it to be around ½ inch or 1.25 cm. So the first one, 0.5. Let's press it open. Our 0.5 is a little bit less than ¼ inch. And then we flip it now so that the right sides are facing. And we want to snip above and beyond the pocket into the seam allowance, so we can actually flip them right sides on right sides. It doesn't really work unless we snip in there. And hop. Now, next round, we want to stitch with a little bit less than 1 cm. So ideally like 0.75 or something. And for the imperial measurements, that will be a little bit more than ¼ inch. So I don't know, there isn't really a seam allowance for that, but in the end it should be less than the whole seam allowance. This makes the pockets disappear in the side seam. That's why we do that. And stitch all the way through. So that's what that looks like, and now we can press them away from our body. And let's do all the other ones too. So now that all the pocket bags have been stitched to their destinations, we can assemble the rest. So let's do some shoulder seams. Wrong sides on wrong sides, 0.6, ¼ inch seam allowance. Then we want to press them open, flip it all around so that the right sides are facing, and then we can stitch the shoulder seams again with 1 cm seam allowance, 3/8 inch. You can also go for a sew and serge, but I always prefer it French. So 1 cm, 3/8 inch. Hi, Millie. So this is always a good moment to stabilize our neckline. Necklines are round and kind of halfway on the bias, so they tend to just stretch out and get nasty. What I do is a stay stitch all the way around with very little seam allowance, and you can do very big stitch length. Now, We also need a little bit of bias tape. I'm not going to do continuous style this time. I have lots of leftovers here. So I'm just going to cut long strips, and then that should be enough actually. It's around 60 cm. I don't know how many inches that is. Like 2 feet. So that's how much we need. I cut it to be 3 cm, which is an inch and a bit. This is easy because it's not a continuous neckline. It's open on the center front. So stitch it first right sides on right sides with 0.6 cm or 1/4 inch seam allowance. Don't stretch the tape too much. Just basically guide it along the raw edge there. Slow and steady. There we go. And then trim the ends a little bit if you want. And now let's press it all towards the neckline. So basically just the tape goes over the seam allowance like this. Snip, snip. I'm leaving a little bit of seam allowance. It's always good. So now let's fold that over. And now tuck the end in like this. And now we want to understitch our bias tape, which just means edge stitching along this seam, and all the seam allowance and the tape is towards the neckline. We come to another end, another beginning, so tuck that in. So it looks like this, and now we want to fold our tape in half, kind of fold the open raw edge of the tape towards the stitches, and then fold it again, so it's a double fold, it's a little roll. This is bias facing, so the bias tape has to be on the inside of the garment. It's not like a bias binding. And this is not pre-ironed, right? So I'm actually just folding it into thirds. It's not a quarter fold, basically like store-bought bias tape. Tuck the ends in like this, make it all nice and clean, finger press it well so you get a good corner point there, a good edge. Bias tape is really kind of about molding the tape into the shape. It's on the bias, so it's flexible, it does what you want, but you have to kind of fold it nicely. Once it's all pinned in place, we can then edge stitch along the edge from the wrong side of the garment, the inside. This is also a very visible stitch, so make sure that your bobbin, your understitch is beautiful. I'm always using my special presser foot for this because this one guides me along the edge, so it's much safer. I just really love bias faced necklines. So now next, this is a long sleeve version I'm making today, so let's add some sleeves. So there isn't a notch for the seam allowance of the sleeve. So if you like, you can always mark the 1.5/8 of an inch of the edge with a pencil yourself. Now, again, a French seam. So first things first, wrong sides facing. They are not just to guide you. And then we want to press it open, flip it all around so that the right sides are facing, and we can sew it again. Now I've sped it up a little bit. It's a very simple French seam. Now just checking everything. You always want to make sure that no little fray or little threads come through, and here and there you might want to snip into the seam allowance. There's always going to be a bit of like bulky moment under the arm, but don't worry about it. So the side seam with our side seam pockets. It's very important that we align them now very well. You can use the original notches there or just align them so they're perfectly matched on top of each other, and also these little seams. So you want to put pins right there where the seams are. So I always kind of try to align them like this and then pin. Just right next to the edge. It's very bulky towards the pocket, so the thin part you want to pin there. And then the rest of the side seam and the sleeves. Speed it up a little bit, took forever. It's a jumpsuit, so there's very long seams in the end. Use all the notches that are there. The shorts crop is also very good, just as a little guide. And then yes, the sleeve. Better safe than sorry. Now, French seam. So this is again, wrong sides facing 0.6 cm, 1/4 inch. And now, this is always weird, but seriously, stick to the 1/4 inch 0.6 cm, even though you kind of have to stitch into a bit of nothingness there, but it gives you a good corner. Here you can really see that the linen I'm using actually has water damage, but I quite like it because it makes it so marbled. Now we pivot into the pocket. There, the curve of the pocket now, and we're coming to towards the next pivot point back, actually. And here it's very important that we stitch a little bit over the original, like kind of connection seam of the pocket bags, like this. We always get the beautiful effect afterwards. Anyway, stick to the seam allowance. Now all the way down, all the way. So let's also snip there on top of the pocket, straight into these corners. Now we want to finish the other one. I did that real quick. And now we can flip it all and reverse it, like turn the jumpsuit outside in, inside out, and try to get our side seam very nice and crisp. So I'm finger pressing it. So nice clean edge, and then we can stitch it all again with 1 cm seam allowance, 3/8 of an inch. So a lot of finger pressing now, the whole side. That takes a minute. Yeah, took a bit. I sped it up a lot. And now let's sew it again. 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Here it's really important to end up next to this original seam that connects the pocket to the body. This is the point where the pockets then will disappear in our side seams. Curves are always hard. These are the pockets though, so if we go a little bit wobbly or whatever, nobody will know. So now again, sew over the original one there, hop a little bit. Then we pivot out of the pocket and continue the rest of the side seam. Snip. And one more time. Gorgeous. Now here you can really see how it overlaps and how the pocket disappears. Press it. So if it all bulks up there, what you want to do is give it like a really good pull, just kind of like stretch the whole area out. And if you're really unhappy about it, give it a hard snip like this. You can put a couple of hand stitches around it if you're worried that it might all fall apart. It usually doesn't. Just phrase a bit. But this really releases the tension there under the arm. So what's left to do? The tunnel. So I hope you have marked it very well, because that's kind of the key to getting it like right and it's not too difficult. First things first, let's actually prepare the tunnel itself. Double fold the short ends 0.75, which is kind of like 1/4 of an inch plus 1/4 of an inch, a little bit more. And then we want to tuck in the long sides by 1.5 cm. I'm actually marking it first because I cut my tunnel a little bit wavy. I don't know if you guys see that. So I have to be really kind of precise about the seam allowance, and I hope the linen will pull itself a bit straight afterwards. So I'm pre-pressing the edges just to make it easier. And then let's pin it in place. So yeah, start kind of from one side and then from the other side and somewhat meet in the middle on the back. Even though maybe you kind of stitched a little bit too much seam allowance or too little, now you can ease that waistband tunnel into its place. It does happen. I made like 3 samples and it sometimes just a little bit too long somewhere, and then you just like work that into the waistband. So pinned in place. Now let's stitch down the long sides there. Don't stitch the short sides, otherwise we don't have a tunnel anymore. It has to stay open. Slow and steady. Make sure you don't get anything else under the needle. It can sometimes happen that like a sleeve or something just ends up being stitched to somewhere it didn't belong to. Yay. Neighbors drilling a hole, I have no idea. So finally, yay, time for the inseam. Let's make it French. So wrong sides on wrong sides first. Use the notches there. If there's a difference between the front or the back or something, it can sometimes happen that curves again get stretched out. So just kind of pull it until it fits again. Ease it together, make it fit. It should fit. But yeah, every now and then the back stretches out more than the front or something, and it looks like it doesn't. Round 0.6 cm, 1/4 of an inch. Let's finger press it open, and then inside out, flip it inside out, and we want to sew it again with 1 cm, aka 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I've quickly thrown in some cotton rope just to test, and it's so cool. I love it, guys. No buttons yet, it was just pinned. So yeah, you can use the tool. You can see the red one lying there. Now, last thing before I put the buttons is the hems. So both the sleeves and both of the legs need a finish, and it's supposed to be double fold. There's 1.5 to 2 cm seam allowance, like 5/8 of an inch, 6/8 of an inch, and you can double fold that. You can also fold a little bit more to shorten the legs and sleeves, up to you. You can also bias face it, but a simple double folded hem, I just do that on the machine real quick. Nice. Oh yeah, before I put the buttons, I want to open these buttonholes. I actually kind of quite like that. There's tons of ways. You can use your ginormous scissors to do it. You can use a little thread unpicker, or you can go with one of these like fancy tools. Somebody on Instagram was also using a special glue to make the buttonholes safer first or something, I don't know. For me, they work just fine like this. So, buttons. How do you guys make a knot? I make it always like this. I learned it like in uni. And then, yeah, buttonholes done. Stitching the buttons in the sunshine is always something nice. These are real seashells, so I really quite like them. Beautiful. You can also do it with the machine. Lately, I've actually been stitching them with my machine, but it's always nice to do it by hand sometimes. So, it's done. What do you guys think? I really like the lazy jumpsuit. I wear it a lot. I have this beige one now, I have a blue one, and I have a blue and white striped one. And they're all in linen. Big linen fan. Anyway, guys, like, subscribe, comment. Thank you so much for watching. I really love making these videos. Please share them with your friends too. See you next time.